What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to ya. As we all come together and discuss the Green Bay Packers on this wonderful Wednesday, or heat-soaked Wednesday, or just overall soaked Wednesday, depending on where you live in the country, because it's a hellscape right now. But do hope everyone is doing well. Joined today by Claudia, partner in pod and partner in life. So, not a whole lot going on with the Green Bay Packers. It's been overall a quiet week. Now, of course, earlier in this week, there was Ed Policy being named the president of the Packers, the future CEO taking over in July of 2025 after the draft concludes. That's kind of been the big news. But I did see a couple other nuggets that I'll share with you as we're waiting for people to get on in here. One being Carrington Valentine has apparently bulked up. It's not just Kobe Wooden who's adding muscle. It's not just A.J. Dillon who's now balanced. Now, Carrington Valentine has mentioned that he's put on 10 pounds of muscle as well, which is good because he was a very wiry corner last year. Now, a little bit extra bulk. It's not going to hurt his case for the cornerback 2 job. And I've talked before about how that is one of the top positions that I am looking forward to. Corner 2, quarterback 2, how they use the vast array of wide receivers. So those are the big things that I'm looking forward to once camp actually gets going. Speaking of camp, coming up, the Packers did announce that they have released all of the times for camp. So there, of course, are the dates. Those are all the training camp dates. Now, if you are a regular of this program, you do know that my plan is to go to all these public ones, then go live after and report on what I've seen. So the show schedule is basically going to follow the training camp schedule for a bit. But the Packers did release that every single practice, all the yellow ones there, are going to be 10:30 a.m. Central Time practices. The one exception being family night on August 3rd, of which, by the way, if you live in the area, if you're interested in attending family night, those tickets went on sale today. So make sure you go check that out. They're available only through Ticketmaster, I'm pretty sure it is. I hopped on and got our tickets earlier. You got to get parking now through Ticketmaster as well. Anything they can do to make it tougher and pay more fees. So that's Ticketmaster. That's family night later on tonight. Also, just one other announcement for you as people are still coming in. I'm going to be off next week. No new episodes coming out of Lombardi Time Brews next week. That is going to be the final week before the real training camp slog begins. Then when I get back, we're going to be talking about reasons for the Super Bowl, reasons against the Super Bowl, and then camp itself, which is just this all-consuming, wonderful event that just happens to take over the month of August. So, there you go. That's all the announcements. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Nothing exciting.
That's good.
Just here.
We did rebalance audio. Hopefully, we heard on Monday that things got a little wonky in the balancing department. So we took a look at that. We got some things rebalanced. Hopefully it's a little bit better out there for you today. Hopefully you can actually hear her.
I'm sorry. I'm quiet.
It's true. It's true. So, I'm going to ask you a question, since you always ask me questions.
Oh, boy.
What are you most looking forward to this year?
Probably the wide receivers and seeing, because they were all babies last year. And so this year, I hope that we can actually see them grow more. And so I'm excited to see them. I'm also excited to see our running back room, seeing as that has changed quite a bit and losing Aaron Jones, which I am still sad about. I understand, still sad, but I'm excited to see our new additions and moving around and everything. So I'm excited for the offense.
Totally fair. Chad Ochocinco, by the way, put out another tweet. I mentioned one on Monday where he gave a shout out to Jaden Reed. But then I believe it was yesterday he put out another tweet because PFF named the top 5 receiver groups for the NFC, just what they do in the offseason, all these lists and just nonsense. And Chad Ochocinco said the Packers should be on there. And when someone called him out for that, he went, you have not been paying attention, kind sir, in significantly more colorful language. But then he listed the reasons why, and he even forgot Jaden Reed. So they're stacked. Steve, what's up? John and Claudia, hope all is well with you both. Hello.
Thank you, Steve.
Hope the same for you, Steve, as well. So, we're in the dearth of the offseason now. Friday's show, I'm actually kind of excited about. It's going to be lingering questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about the run defense. I'm going to talk about different aspects of the team that could come back to plague them a little bit. Just in spite of an offseason of change, What are some things that are carrying over that may be problematic? What are some of the new things that may not mesh as well as we're all hoping, such as like how long is the defense going to take to gel? Going to dive into those topics on Friday. Pretty excited. Steve!
Now with Ed Policy taking over as president for the Packers next year, will that make you, John, Secretary of Defense, and Claudia, Secretary of State? It should.
Right, I hope so. Give us access to a blimp,
Exactly.
like you've been saying, Steve. I'm
Yes.
all about it. But
Get us access at all.
you're right. I am really excited for Ed Policy. Like, he's a guy who is the commissioner of the Arena Football League. He has extensive admin experience. He's a lawyer, like so many of these executives
in his
are.
bloodline.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean-
His dad was Carmen Policy for the Niners. I do think, like, I saw Acme Packing Company, they put out a poll on their Twitter account saying, like, how are Packer fans feeling? And it was like half neutral, half approving of the hire. And I don't know, like, just because the guy hasn't been an owner or president before, he's just about as good as you can get with someone who hasn't filled the position before, because he's been a commissioner. He's done great work for Green Bay in the
Right.
last 12, now 13 going on years. So Ed Policy, I think, is a home run hire. I'm excited to hear more. I'm sure it's going to be talked about at the shareholder meeting coming up on July 22nd. So excited to learn more about that as well.
Jenny, hello everyone.
Hello, Jenny.
Steve asking, hasn't Ed Policy been with us a long time? Or am I wrong? 12 years?
Yeah, you're right. It's been 12 complete years. So he, prior to Green Bay, he actually was in New York, and he was the deputy commissioner of the Arena Football League for a while. I think it was like 7-8 years. And then after that, the commissioner retired, and he took over. Like, he was the acting commissioner for, it was a smaller stint. I don't remember off the top of my head, a couple of years. Then, of course, the Arena Football League shut down. But I don't think it was necessarily an indictment of the work the Policy was doing. I understand how that sounds like, oh, then he's an idiot. No, I think there are a lot of factors for Arena Football League. But then after that, Mark Murphy kind of scooped him up to come work for Green Bay. Now he's been there for 12 years. He started out as a VP and was a general counsel. General counsel just means he's kind of like their lawyer on staff to handle whatever comes his way. And then after that, he was promoted, I think it was 7 years ago, promoted to being the chief operating officer and general counsel. And his big job in the last couple of years has been ensuring the functions of Titletown, bringing in Titletown Tech, bringing in the other businesses that are there. All that stuff is Ed Policy. So I think that's pretty darn exciting. And yeah, no, you're not wrong, Steve. He's been there a while.
Mm-hmm. Captain Kebbles, we here. Hi, Captain Kebbles.
What's up, Captain Kebbles?
Also, of any of the starters we have, if a team calls offering a third rounder, let's say a repeat of the Bills pick last year, who are you willing to part with? My answer is none, personally.
Yikes. Well, let's consider the Rasul Douglas trade last year, right? I mean, here was a guy, I don't remember the exact specifics, but I believe he was 29, like soon to be 30, maybe a year away, but either way, late 20s. As well as a guy who was facing a pretty big raise coming into next year, and then his contract was done. I think if the Packers are going to part with anyone, it's someone in a relatively similar situation. Someone who is not a part of necessarily the long-term plans. Someone who is due escalating raises that maybe the personnel department doesn't feel should warrant that upcoming salary. I'm not saying that was the case with Rasul, but maybe that was part. So I think we got to identify a player like that. And in terms of who do the Packers have like that? Like no one? Like really though? I mean, there's Preston, right? The lone 30-year-old on the roster. He certainly has a hefty enough contract. But if you get rid of Preston, then you are so diminishing your edge depth. You're catapulting Lucas Van Ness into a guaranteed starting role opposite Rashawn Gary, down in, down out. And then Egbare becomes kind of your swing edge, if you will, with maybe Brenton Cox Jr. in support. I don't love the idea of trading Preston, not to mention the fact that he's one of the only actually like old leaders on the team. So I don't love that for a myriad of reasons. Plus the savings just aren't worth it. We talked about that earlier in the offseason. So in terms of like other vets who, no one. Yeah, I'm with you, Captain Kebble. It's like off the top of my head and thinking it through more, I'm not sure I'd give a third or I'd get a third for anyone of the starters on the roster. They're either too young, have too many years remaining on a contract. The financials make no friggin' sense for some of them. So, no one. We're in agreement. Leave the team alone.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, and that's true too. Like, this is a team that's looking to aspire to move to a Super Bowl. And I think it was a couple weeks ago, got asked a question about should we move on from Preston or whatever else, if we can recoup great value back. No. And one of the reasons why is because the Packers are now an aspiring Super Bowl team, right? Like last year, they weren't necessarily expecting to be as good as they were. Last year was the learning year. It was the trial year. Make sure stuff works like they were hoping. Well, now they know it does. Now it's a matter of repeating the success, building upon that success, and overall making a better team. And you just don't really subtract assets from that. You bring in additional assets to that roster to get you over the hump. So I think it's where we gotta go.
Steve asking, are you going to Jordan Love's wedding?
I mean, I would in a heartbeat.
You know what?
Can't afford the airfare, but yeah.
On my Facebook, Jordan Love has come up as people you may know.
Yep.
I don't believe it's Love's Facebook because I'm pretty sure whoever it is just copy and pasting.
Gotta be a fan account.
What his Instagram is. But like they don't post anything else. Just whatever is on Jordan Love's Instagram. But two people that I am friends with are friends with Jordan Love. So he comes into my people you may know. And yeah, I think of you, Steve, every time.
I think you should add him and then just make it a notch on the resume. Yeah, no, not heading to that wedding. I can tell you a couple assured things about that wedding, though. One, I love the fact that Tucker Kraft is in the comments saying like, well, no, Jordan's got to get a ring. I love that. I will also say that I am certain that it's going to be a lovely affair. I'm also certain that Romeo Dobbs, if he's there, is not going to smile. I feel confident in that because we've seen pictures of Dobbs at other weddings. Dude just doesn't like to smile. Like he's got and he's a fun dude. Like I've met him personally a couple times. He's nice. He smiles in person, but in pictures.
Weird.
Oh yeah, like even candid action shots.
Really? Even in candid? I
Nothing.
thought it was all just like post pictures.
Nothing. It's always just a blank, like just face, or if anything, he looks confused. Which
that makes
good for you, man. And I know it won't happen too, but if Jordan Love just had like every one of his receivers as his groomsmen,
that's what I was
Super
just
Bowl.
thinking. Like
Super Bowl.
I wonder who he's gonna like of any of his teammates who will be his groomsmen.
Well, I mean, think back, like in the previous generation of Packers, there was, when Rodgers was social and would go do things like the Kentucky Derby. Who was always there? Like Bakhtiari was always there. Cobb was there. Eventually Mercedes Lewis was there. Devontae was there for a number of years. Like it was kind of the QB's little clique, right? Well, Jordan's wedding may be kind of indicative to see who's in the new QB's little clique. So it could be interesting to find out for sure. So, all right, now another question for you. Hopefully a few more come in from out there, but question for you.
Oh boy.
What are you apprehensive about this year?
I mean, I'm always apprehensive about special teams, so I don't think that's new.
That's fair.
Probably, I mean, the great unknown is the defense, right? I mean, There are changes in the staff, and so I'm wondering how that will go. I would love to have a nice defense year.
That's a very nice way to say it, yeah.
Of the year. So probably the defense, just seeing how the change in scheme works with the players.
Yeah.
I know that most of our roster would benefit from a more aggressive scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see if that actually plays out or if people have been playing different for too long and then it doesn't actually pan.
Yeah, I think special teams, because that's actually one of the questions that I have on Friday, I'm going to be talking about a little bit more in depth, is what's going to be different? I know there's the rule change for kickoff. Okay, so let's take that out of the conversation. That's one portion of teams. For the rest of it, though, 2 years ago, they were 22nd, Rick Gosselin special teams rankings. Now they're 29th. Like, they got worse. Bisaccia is supposed to be there to fix it all and to make sure that they don't don't go back to being the worst team in special teams, right? And yet they're falling backwards. So what is being done this year to actually improve special teams? I've talked about it before. I think little things like maybe improved tackling with the draft choices, that may help. Anders Carlson just being better would help. Perhaps putting in Peter Bowden as the long snapper instead of Orzik. Maybe that would even help Carlson in turn, right? So there are some things that we may see, but schematically, philosophically, are things going to change to make sure that special teams doesn't fall backwards again or keep us in the doldrums, in the absolute bottom of special teams? We'll be talking about that definitely more on Friday. I was basically just, but like, what is it truly that's going to change? In terms of the defense, Hafley's a highly experienced guy, been around several different NFL franchises. Then he got a chance to run his own team at BC. Was a defensive coordinator at Ohio State for the #1 defense in the country. So the guy has the track record. He also has the philosophy that seems to fit the Packers personnel so much better than Joe Barry's ever did. Because we've been saying for 2 years on this channel how Brian Gutekunst does not draft for Joe Barry. He's drafting guys who are man corners, and then they're having them play cover 4 or quarters or whatever else. And I know the fluctuations been throughout the years, like up and down rates that they use those things, but nonetheless, still deep zone, no matter what you want to call it. And it never matched. Now it should actually match. So I think the defense, just logically looking through all the different things, should point us in the direction of it's not just optimistic to think the defense will be better. It seems rooted in practicality and in reason to say that the defense, the product this year, should be better. If it's not better this year, now that you're going from one schematic extreme to the other, if it's not better after that, then the Packers have to seriously evaluate how they draft personnel on the defensive side and, frankly, blow it up. Because if neither scheme works for a whole bunch of years and you're on both extremes, then it does become a real conversation about this being a player problem, and Goots got to look in the mirror for sure. Captain Kebbles.
Who has more positive plays in preseason, Pratt or Clifford?
Oh, okay. So minicamp is definitely Pratt. As for training camp, oh man, you're gonna make me say one or the other. I will say, all right. So let's go in terms of just. I got a way to answer this. Cleaner plays, Pratt. Wow plays, Clifford, because Clifford's going to have the good and the bad. Pratt, you're going to see a cleaner performance. Let's say that, okay? I still think, even if Pratt does look like the cleaner quarterback in training camp, I know not everyone's going to agree with this or like it, but I'm still of the opinion of the Packers probably roll with Sean Clifford as the backup, unless like Pratt drastically outplays Clifford. Yeah, I just did last week the 53-man roster prediction. I saw Bill Huber put out an article for Sports Illustrated like 2 days after I did my video. We shared 51 of the 53 players in common. I think Bill checked out our video here, but Bill's fantastic. I'm kidding. But he also was alike in thinking that Clifford is the one that makes it, because intangibles are so important for that QB2 role. So let's go with Pratt plays the cleaner quarter, and overall, it's still Clifford's job.
Kevin Keppel saying, how much was the kicking affecting the special teams ranking?
It definitely had an effect. I don't have the numbers here. I can try to pull them up, but I mean, like, it's not like Carlson was the absolute worst kicker in the NFL last year. He was at extra points. I feel pretty confident saying that. But overall, I don't think he was the worst. Like, I don't think the Packers were the worst kicking team in the league. Let's say that, because some teams used like 5 kickers. But it does certainly play a portion in whatever algorithm Gosselin uses to make his complete ranking. And I think there's some articles out there, I've looked at them before, about like how he develops his ranking, et cetera, et cetera. And he does have subcategories. I know I haven't looked at him for a long time, but yeah, I would search that out. He's the writer from Houston.
Steve saying, is the new kickoff rule saying no more touchbacks?
So touchbacks still exist, but they should be a lot less frequent now. And that's why one of the reasons, when the kickoff rules first came out, and there's still some things that the NFL needs to better clarify for fans or like teams do, we'll really get a good idea in training camp. But one of the quick things of thinking was that this should benefit Keyshawn Nixon because he's going to bring more out. The reward for hanging back and taking the touchback is not as drastic as it once was. So we should see, in theory, more kickoff returns. But what's going to be really interesting is how special teams adapt to that. Are we going to see a lot more like squib or pooch kicks to the 5-yard line, to the 1-yard line attempted, to make sure that teams, are we going to see more sky kicks on kickoffs to not allow returners as much time to try to find a lane? Going to be super interesting. I will say it's a little sad from a philosophical standpoint that Bill Belichick isn't in the NFL this year as a coach, because to watch how he would have manipulated and figured out the way to crack the code against the new kickoff rules would have been fascinating. And I have full faith that he would have come up with something that we haven't thought of, and that would have been cool to see. So that's a real shame.
Kebble's saying, I love how Matt gave no Fs and had Sean chucking it in the Vikings game.
Hey, if you're putting in the backup and he's a gunslinger, let him sling, right? Like that's the whole thing. Like, play to the quarterback you got in. And yeah, I will say that was fantastic. Also relevant about Vikings and the name Sean, how LaFleur also gave no Fs and just kind of took Sean Mannion from the Vikings to basically be Tom Clements' protege, quite possibly the quarterback coach of the future when Clements actually retires now that he's 70 plus. That is still one of the most thug coach moves you could possibly do. Like, I'm not even going to poach a dude on your coaching staff. I'm going to take one of your players and make him my coach. That's just so sweet.
Kebble's Bill would have had the NFL changing the rules mid-game.
Right? Because that's what he did. Like, there were so many things over the years. Like, even when they introduced the more extreme touchback, like if a team doesn't want to return it, then they get the ball farther out. Bill's like, all right, I'm going to kick it to the 1. And then my teams are going to tackle so well that they're going to get brought down at the 12. This is going to benefit me. And it worked. Like, he actually did it. Like, that's the thing that Belichick did with special teams specifically so well. Like, he just figured out, like, oh, the NFL's coming up with some new cockamamie thing. Okay, we'll do this in response.
Give me 5 minutes.
And we'll just have one of the best special teams in the NFL again. Like, I still say, if the dude wants a job, it's okay. He can work with Bisaccia. Green Bay, call him up. Like, I'm still down. It's never going to happen, but I still would be down. So, all right, everybody, we'll hang out for like 5 more seconds, see if any more sneak in here. But thanks, everybody, for joining us on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Like I said, Friday is going to be lingering questions, and then next week, off. No new episodes next week. That's the final week that I'll have off before, like, the Super Bowl. So, see... no new episodes next week, and then we're getting real close to training camp, and then the schedule goes out the window, and we just follow the Packers with some extras. So, all right, everybody, does look like that's it. So it's time for us to get on out of here. Do hope you have a great Wednesday, and as always, go Pack, go.